All right, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're burning the house down. Like I said, I haven't said it in a while, but we're not burning it down because it was a bad job or the homeowner's upset or any of that. What we're doing is we're burning down your business and your preconceptions around what it is to be a professional in the construction industry. We're forever changing that mindset and we're creating construction champions and we're rebuilding that house for you, whether it's your business, your personal life, your relationship with your kids, your family, your employees, yourself, whatever that is. We're on a mission here to change it and make it better. And as always, I have an amazing guest with me. Rodric, it is great to have you here today.
Man, thanks, Ron. I am glad you gave me the warning on the intro. I would have fallen out of my chair. So appreciate that.
Hey, it happens to the best of us. That's why I give that I let people know because I bring some excitement. I get fired up. This is one of my favorite things I do. And I just like the impact we can have it today. Like, unless they delete the internet, all conversation would be here forever. 5 years from now, somebody could tune in and it could completely change their business just because me and you decided to get together and have a 30-minute conversation. And that just excites me.
Yeah, man. I hear that. I hear that.
But why don't you take some time and let the construction champions out there know a little bit about yourself, what excites you, what do you got going on?
Sure. So where do I begin? Lifelong entrepreneur. Other than about 3 years, I went into new homes, which almost killed me, literally. And we can talk about that. Um, Ultimately sold my business a couple years back and could do anything. I was I'm 43 now. I was in a position where if I wanted to just sit on a beach in Thailand all day, I could, and or fiddle around with the hot rods or sit here in the wood shop where I'm at right now. But I lasted about 6 months in vacation mode, like most true entrepreneurs do. And I was actually in Thailand and I look over at Nicole, my partner, and I'm like, we got to give it all away. And she's just like, what the, has no idea what's been brewing in this crazy mind of mine. Right. And that was the birth really of Million Dollar Flip Flops, which is the book and the podcast and the journal and now the audiobook and the second book and all of the things around that. I went to Brown to get my ICF and professional coaching. I had helped a lot of construction folks and tradies kind of come up and start their businesses and decided that that's what I wanted to do when I didn't have to do anything. So that's where I'm at now, man. I'm a small business coach, but primarily work with custom home builders. And I am not your guy if you want to sacrifice everything for the Lamborghini. I am your guy if you understand the concept of enough. And as I built my businesses, I've been to 60 countries on 6 continents now, and the Super Bowl and the World Series and F1 at Monza, and go on through the list of cool stuff because that's what I value. I value travel and experience and those things. And it's very possible to do those things and still have a thriving business. You don't have to give up one for the other. And I think most builders in particular are just a few systems and strategies and tactics away from making that a reality for themselves. So that's what I've dedicated my next chapter to. And if you know anything about me, you know that we donate 100% of everything we do to our foundation, Send a Student Leader Abroad. And we can talk about that too.
Awesome, man. I love it. I'm excited for our conversation today. So we're going to dive right in there. I'm going to ask you the $1,000,000 question. And that is, what makes a construction champion?
Mhm. Can I have two answers?
Absolutely, man.
One of the best things I took from my time in new homes, and there wasn't many things other than big paychecks, was do what's right. I was with Ryland Homes, and I would watch them lop the top off of a house that was almost done because they had to fix something, and it wasn't a Band-Aid. It was, you just do what's right, whether anybody's looking, you do what's right. And that was a lesson out of there. And I think in general, my ethos has just been, if you truly come into any scenario, and this can be applied to a builder or your relationship, or a lot of things you brought up at the intro there. If you truly come from a place of curiosity and a place of giving, I am here to figure out how I can serve you in the highest form possible. You can't lose. You can't lose building houses. You can't lose in your relationship with your wife or husband. You can't lose. If you're coming to take, I think we see what happens to those people in society.
Yeah, unfortunately we do. And it makes up a small percentage of the construction industry that I feel a lot of times we aren't willing to just call out and just say, hey, yeah, there are some bad eggs in this industry, but I'm not one of them. And then use that as a reason why people should do business with you, is you're here to do the right thing. You have a family, you have employees that you're providing for, and you want to do the right thing and build a sustainable business.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple lead magnets that run on, Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. One of them's called No More Screaming Clients because everybody knows what that is. And it's that phone call on Sunday when you're supposed to be at the soccer game. And it really it's something that any builder can use in their pre-construction meeting. They can use it in their contract, and it applies to a lot of other industries, but it does call that out. It's here's the good and the bad and the nasty and the ugly that's going to happen over the next 12 to 24 months together. And I literally have a diagram of the homeowner's emotional roller coaster, and it shows at each stage of the project how they're going to feel. And then there's a timeline that says, okay, you're going to feel like it's moving real slow. You're going to feel frustrated. Here's what's actually happening. And it sets that stage so that when they get there, they go, oh, this is normal. He told me this was going to happen. Instead of what I see a lot of builders do is like, everything's going to be great. I'm the best builder in the world. And then when everything's not great and it's not HGTV, they wonder why people are pissed.
No, it's amazing. So I remember putting together like that timeline. I called it the pre-sales sheet and then the pre-installation sheet. So like people understood timelines, what's going to happen, what is the process? Because most people we deal with, let's just say 95% of them have no idea what a construction project or a new home build or any of this is going to be like. So like, there's an education or curve there that most of the construction industry just throws out the window. And it's such an opportunity to create a customer that is your ideal customer, because you just laid out their understanding of how the project is going to go is how you're going to do the project. So like you create this customer that's perfect, and you educate them on the process that right now all they have is YouTube, HGTV, TikTok, whatever they're watching. That's their only preconceived notion of what a or their cousin or sister-in-law that had a horrible experience. Like that's all they have to go off of. But we have a perfect opportunity to set that bar, not just for ourselves, but for the construction industry.
I think too, where I saw the biggest difference is speaking to the emotions, right? The emotions of the homeowner. That's why it's called, if you look at the document, it's called the emotional homeowner roller coaster. And because typically you're dealing with a husband and a wife, and typically one of those is screaming at the other one, and then the one calls you, right? So if you can speak to both of them, so the husband typically, I'm stereotyping to some degree, but is all about the timeline and the Gantt chart, and here's what happens and here's what happens. And she just wants to know when it's gonna be done, how happy I'm gonna be, and how I'm gonna feel throughout the project. And I think if you can handle both of those things holistically, everything is so much smoother.
Yeah, and so for our long-term listeners, if this is your first time tuning in, this is the first time you're going to hear me say this, but I say it all the time, and I'm so glad to hear you say it's all emotions, because that's what it is. Like every interaction we have with somebody, especially when they're upset or having a problem, like it's just an emotion they're feeling. And we have to figure out what that is, what's the root cause of it, and work through it. Like that's our job, is to understand those emotions and get our customers through that process, no matter what it is. Like we can't take it personal. chances are something happened, and we can't take it as a personal attack. We just have to take it as this is the emotions they're currently feeling. How can I fix this situation? And then how can I create an environment where my customers never have that emotional feeling ever again? And I have to deal with that. So I love your perspective on this, because I don't have a lot of guys come on here and talk about that. It's just true emotions. Like, how do we, like, that's the root of communication and fixing it, is understanding whether it's customers, employees, family members, anything you're dealing with. These are just emotions, and if we can understand how to control that and create the outcomes we want, it's magical.
Yeah, yeah. It's, if you read my book, so the book's Million Dollar Flip Flops, Peace, Prosperity, and the Courage to Change Course in Life and Business. And the waves method, which is at the heart of that, and that whole system came out of my time in new homes, where I found myself at the lowest point of my life. And we can talk about that, but it's the V in waves is values. And I always liken it to, a lot of people have heard of the 5 love languages. And that is true for anybody. That's true for your project managers. That's true for your accountant. That's true. It's true for any relationship you have. And to briefly summarize, but if Ron's love language is gifts and mine is acts of service, I'm going to keep doing all of these acts of service for Ron, and I won't figure out why Ron isn't happy. It's because he just wants a trinket. And when you understand that about your customer, and you understand that about your employees, and you just take one step back and look at it more globally, every interaction is better. And you're 100% right that think about, certainly in custom builds, a lot of my projects were 18 to 24 months long. We were doing big, complicated, historic projects in Charlotte. And what happens in 2 years? What's happened in the last 2 years for you? What's happened in the last 2 years for me? You're going through deaths and divorces and births and sickness, and life is happening to these people while they're waiting on you, quote unquote, to finish their house. So yeah, you can't take it personally, but that's one of those things. It's simple, not easy, right?
Yeah, no, and it's such a perspective right there. Like, what if your average project is 6 to 12 months or 12 to 24 months? Like, think about the stuff that happens in people's lives besides that project. Like you said, just like what happened in the last 2 years for most of our listeners out there. Like, sit down and start thinking about that. And then think about, well, so you have all of that going on, and you're either building a new home, renovating a home. No matter what, they're probably kind of displaced. They're not where they want to be at. And then they're living life. I mean, I can go back to when we originally moved south and living in Airbnbs, waiting to close on our house. Like, there was just a lot of shit going on. And it was like, you just, there's all kinds of different emotions. That's what all homeowners are going through during these projects. And it's construction. They don't know what's right, what's wrong, or what's perfect. So setting your customer up for success really matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those high dividend activities. The builders I work with, the vast majority of them, they have successful businesses. They're not worried about more top line revenue. They want their time back. And a lot of that time gets sucked up by customers. And a lot of that reason is because of expectations. And that's whether it's them having to deal directly, or their supers or project managers are having to deal with the customer, and then it's running uphill to them. It's one of those things that if you take just a few hours on the front end to really nail and think about, it saves you dozens and dozens and dozens of hours
Mhm.
over the course of a project, and your employees' time too. So it's important.
Absolutely. So I know you've referenced a few different times new home building and the complications that you personally had with all of that. And I'm sure you had a lot of growing perspectives doing that. So it probably wasn't all bad. But you want to dive into some of that, let some of the guys out there know what some of those emotions that you were feeling during those times, and what led you to having the success that you have now coming out of that.
So I was, let me back up to kind of high school and college. But by the time I left college, I had already started 4 businesses. I had 2 that were running at that time. That's when I moved south. I moved from Michigan down to Charleston, South Carolina. And nothing to do with construction. One was automotive related, and one was wholesale. And I went into new homes. I had gotten my real estate license, and I was walking through the neighborhood behind my house, and they had decimated the trees. Like my park was gone that I used to walk through. And I was like, oh, interesting. Then these houses start springing up. And I walk into the model home one day, and I meet Lane, who is still a good friend of mine. And I see the BMW out there, and I see that she only works 35, 36 hours a week. And I wasn't in the field. I was in sales when I was in new homes. And I'd always loved construction. I always did my own stuff. My family has a construction background. So I was like, all right, I see this gravy train, right? So I slowly shut down the 2 businesses that I had, started on this path. And I was 23, 24 years old, making more in a month than my parents made in a year. We grew up with nothing in Michigan, and I could go anywhere I want, buy anywhere I want, buy anything I want, do anything I want. And I was absolutely miserable. And I woke up every day with that, is this all there is feeling? And I was depressed. I had suicidal thoughts. I had, I was the lowest I could possibly imagine myself being. And ultimately, we touched on it a little earlier, but it was a values disconnect. If you look at my top values, they're freedom and autonomy and community. And I'm sitting in a model home by myself, making more money than I know what to do with, but I only see 4 people a week, and I'm tied to a garage, and I can only leave for 2 weeks a year. And it's like, it didn't matter if they were paying me $2 million a year, I would have been miserable, and I think until I call it right map, wrong mountain. We're given this prescription of how to live our lives, and that money will solve all of our problems. And I tell people, and most people, they're 40 or 50 years old when they figure that out. That's when they have a midlife crisis, right? They realize they've been on the wrong mountain the whole time, following the map given to them by someone that was going to lead to happiness and success and all these things. And they get there and they say, is this all there is? And they don't know what they did wrong. Well, they didn't do anything wrong. We're just not taught to think that way. And I was fortunate to learn it at a young age. And ultimately, that's what became the waves method and the things that made it into the book 20 years later. But it was my way of making decisions so that I never found myself in that place again. And I think builders in particular are subject to this or susceptible to this, because a lot of us come out of the trades, or you start with smaller projects, and then you're doing kitchens and baths, and then, okay, I'm going to build a little addition. Okay, next thing you know, you're building $2 million custom homes, and 40 years has gone by, and you're divorced, and your kids don't know who you are, and all of these things, because it easily can start to swallow you up, unless you're really intentional about where you want it to go, but most importantly, why.
No, I completely agree with that. Like we're all on these paths, and a lot of times there's a disconnect. And like you said, you start out doing one thing, and then next thing it morphs into something else, and you're sitting there going, how did we even get here? Like, and you basically just have a job for yourself, and you don't we too often, especially in construction, we lose sight of why we start something, because we get so down into it and just like, well, it's just the next project would do this differently, and then but we don't change a whole lot, and we just stay in this cycle where it's just like we're just surviving, and there's
Mhm.
no real trying to create this lifestyle. When the construction business is great, being in construction is great, if we just looked at it as not construction. If we just said, hey, I have a business, it just so happens to be construction, we could change so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I do calls with people. They're called 20-minute blueprint calls, and they're really just designed why do I do them for free? I get that question all the time because it keeps my thumb on what people are experiencing in their business. And I might do 10 calls a week, and maybe only one of those is a right fit to work together, but they're all valuable. We help them figure out kind of what are the number one bottlenecks in their business and why. And then if it's a fit, we move on to a strategy call. And that's what I was doing right before I hopped over to you. And I'll show you, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the screen, but we build these triangle models. And my goal is for you to have your best year ever. And that may or may not mean money. It may mean 6 weeks of vacation. And if you look, it says no phone vacation. And everyone, I'm going to guess listening right now, is like, F you, no phone on vacation. That's impossible. And that's exactly why that's the goal, because that's our first 6 weeks of a year-long program is, if you've built a healthy business, if you can walk away and it doesn't die without you there. Otherwise, it's exactly what you just said. You've built yourself a job, which is fine if that's what you want. Most people didn't start this business because they want to do what they want, when they want the time freedom. And now they're working 80 hours a week and they don't know how to get off the treadmill.
Yeah, because that's like you said, most people started it because they want some of that freedom. They want some of that ability. And that all starts with creating a business that you don't have to be at all the time. And we say it on here all the time, from whether you're building something that eventually you're going to give to your kids, that you're eventually going to sell, or you're just going to work in it the rest of your life and let it continue to do what it does. You're always better to just proactively be building it so it doesn't evolve around you. I know guys that run 7-figure businesses that they spend 1 day a month in, and they just put together a team, and they made the decision, like they have a well-oiled machine, and they've just made the decision that they're just going to let the team take care of it and pay them really well to do that. And they're going to take what their cut is off of that, and they're going to go do other stuff that they found passion in doing that's not necessarily running a construction business. And I think we underestimate the ability of, as we grow something or as we get older, as we mature, that there's going to be other stuff that pique our interest, that pique our curiosity. And if we build a business that involves us 24/7, we never have the ability to go chase those other dreams that come out of or have an impact. Like with what you do, I mean, it's amazing that the impact that you're able to go on and have, because you focused on that and you didn't make it about you. You made it about building something that's sustainable. And now you have the ability to go have a huge impact, not just on the construction industry, but also with your charitable work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even when I was in we'll say the thick of when I was in building and development, I still managed to travel to 60 countries, and and people are like, how did you do it? I'm like, well, I booked a plane flight and I left, and I, and it's because it's just like where I'm at now. I'm at this house and that we bought up in the mountains, and I will never build a business that doesn't allow me to get off this call and go mess with the hot rods or, bang out some stuff in the wood shop. I will never do something that doesn't allow me to do that. And it's just knowing what you want and working backwards from that. And I think where builders especially go, again, they just get swallowed up by it. And next thing you know, it's 50 hours a week. They don't have time to think about how to build the business, how to work on the business, because they're so deep in it. And I think that's where, I mean, this as well as anybody. I mean, a coach isn't any better than you. They just can see things that you're never going to be able to see. Until you videotape the golf swing, you're never going to be able to see yourself back here. It's why every great in every industry has a coach. I mean, it's can't see the label from inside the bottle.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's ever been the greatest, like all the GOATs had people that were there showing them how to do it. I'm a huge component of people having coaches personally, professionally, like finding the person that you align with that can get you where you want to go. There's nothing more powerful than that. And it's something that people should look at. Like you said, you do 10 calls a week. and maybe one person's a fit. Like, people don't necessarily understand that everybody's not a fit for everybody. And
Right.
a great coach understands who they can help the most, and then those are the people they focus in on. They're not just trying to figure out who can we get on the roster, but it's who can I actually go have an impact with and get them rocking and rolling. And as a consumer, as a business owner, that's how you guys should also look at it, is like, who's the person that not only do I relate with, but who's the person I think could push me where I need to go? Like, don't go hire a business coach that you think is just going to kumbaya you, and you can pay them to be able to say, "Oh, I have this business coach," but you don't feel like they're going to hold you accountable. You need to find somebody that gets you a little uncomfortable, that makes you start to think about stuff, and that's what I believe. And that's how people should go about it. And you should go have a coach.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's like the call I was just on. This fella's a builder in Utah, and this was our strategy call. So you figure I've only had one 20-minute call with him, and which was Friday, and then we had our hour-long call today where we're actually putting a plan together. And I always ask this question when we're about 30 minutes in. I've been asking a ton of questions about their business, and I say, what's been most valuable about this time together so far? Because everyone's idea of value is different, and almost invariably builders will say just being able to talk to someone that isn't my wife or isn't in my business that understands what I'm saying, and the actual challenges that you don't want to burden your family with. And your wife didn't sign up to be your business partner, and if she did, God bless her, because that's Nicole for me. But you don't want to bring all that stuff home, and you can't talk to the people underneath you about some of these big strategic moves that you're making, and how to give people ownership and how to protect yourself in that process, and just all those little intricacies that go into, like you said, a well-oiled machine. And there's just a ton of value in that, but it's not for everybody, and what people don't realize is I'm auditioning you a lot more than you're auditioning me. I'm gonna have a lot of calls this week, but at any given time I'm only working with about 20 people. So
Hmm.
that fit is super important. And the last thing I'll say on that is you see that with builders, when they take on that nightmare client. And I always hear, I'll make you a scarf from the red flags you handed me. And it's like, you knew that they were going to be terrible, but you took them because you were in a cash flow crunch, or because you weren't hitting your sales numbers for that week or month or year. And again, that's because you're so wrapped up in it that you're not treating it like a business. And there's 1,000 reasons why, but it's your fault you're with that person, and
Yeah.
and I was thinking about that, something Nicole says all the time. She goes, you're always 50% to blame in any situation. And I was thinking about the angry homeowner that we started off the show talking about. And it's like, they might have something going on in their life. They're taking it out on you, but you're still 50% to blame. And I think if you can be open and understand that and get better, that's ultimately what makes your business better too.
Awesome, man. I love it. I think that's a great way to end the show there with that. So for all the construction champions out there that are listening, if they wanted to connect with you, follow you, pick up your book, where's the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, at $1,000,000 Flip Flops on every channel, $1,000,000flipflops.com. If you're really curious why it's named that, you can email me, I'll tell you. You can buy the book. You can buy the book at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you can buy a book. And man, this was a ton of fun. Like we kind of said, I could sit and chat shop with you for the next 2.5 hours. I'd do it again.
Absolutely. But hey, I can testify Rodric's book is amazing. I might have got a copy sent to me, so I might have looked at it, and I think it would do everybody out there that's listening a great service to go pick that up and read it and really start to understand what your business could be. So thank you for being on the show today. It has been absolutely amazing.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron.
All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag where once again we tiptoed around the subject of, are you too much in your business? Does it dominate every aspect of your life? If something happened and you couldn't be there for the next 30 days, what would that look like? Or I guess the better question is, go look yourself in the mirror and say, if something happened and I couldn't be at my business for the next 2 weeks, would I still have a business? If you can't give yourself a clear answer of yes, I would, and it would be functioning and I could step right in there, you need to reevaluate that. Because it's not fun. Like the stresses, the stuff that you have, I've been there. Rodric's been there. Like he's never going back. He's perfectly clear on that. It can be a lot better when you start to get the right people around you and you have an understanding of where you want to be at. So you can bring in the right people. Most of us have an understanding of why we started the business to begin with in the first place. And we've lost sight of that, or that has changed, and it now allows us to have to work in the business all the time. We have spent some time here this week, over the weekend, evaluating what is it that I want? What does that look like? And then start reverse engineering that to create a business that fulfills that. So, Construction Champions, make sure you go check out all of our fantastic partners. And until next time, be the champion you were meant to be. Hey, Construction Champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum here, and I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12 and what it can do for the front end of your business today. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going and meeting with Les and his son, Devin, and talking to him about what they built for their own business so the rest of the industry can take benefit from that. Here on Construction Champions, we're all about helping each other out. And what is better than contractors helping contractors? I say nothing. So let's go take this to the next level. Go check out Build 12. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Les or his son, Devin. We're here to help. We want to continue to grow the industry.